Alrighty. Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to It's October, and I'm really excited. So today I have my next and probably last for this league build, most likely, just due to like timing constraints. I'm going to be really busy for the rest of this month, pretty much. And as much as I would love to continue playing, I probably am going to have to pause until for the foreseeable future. But we'll see. Maybe if I have some time to squeak in some more stuff, I'll add another character to my repertoire. Per usual, POB will be down in the description below if you want to just skip and look directly at that. So what I have for you today is a elemental damage heavy strike slayer. So as you can see here, Bass Ackwards, my level 95 slayer. He has absolutely crushed it up until now. Just has completely cruised through the entire game. Bass Ackwards, just because that's the way I've been typing recently. I've been really struggling to type recently, and I don't know why. But anyway, so this is the Heavy Strike character, Heavy Strike Slayer. If you're wondering why I wanted to do something with Heavy Strike, it's because I truthfully really liked Heavy Strike. It's a very simple skill. It literally just has a chance to deal double damage, and it stuns the enemies pretty regularly as well. It's a very simple ability, but I always really liked it just because sometimes it's a simple strike ability is all you need, honestly. But the biggest issues that it had, that they have now fixed, is that it had really terrible damage. Like, there was kind of no reason to really use it in comparison to just about any other strike skill, just based on its damage effectiveness. But as you can see now, the attack damage and effectiveness of added damage is 660% now. It's insane. So really big buffs to Heavy Strike in that regard. And the other most annoying thing with it was that it used to knock back enemies. It was completely terrible. It would just knock everything away if it didn't die in one hit, and it was extremely annoying because of that. And so I remember I tried to make a build with it a league or two ago, and I ultimately ended up switching to Double Strike because I was just absolutely miserable dealing with that. I 100% just hated dealing with just knocking enemies away. So they removed that as well, which was another really big buff to Heavy Strike. Felt great. And so now I've been running around with this character, and it's been a lot of fun. I've been using this Anarchic Spirit Blade here to convert all of the Fizz damage to damage of a random element. And I will go over all the build here. I figured I would do a Flawless Breachstone this time. This character has done literally everything as far as I know. I have farmed T17s, I've of course farmed 16s, I've done every single boss that I can think of, every single pinnacle boss. I did a couple of Uber Cortexes. I 100% could have done an Uber Shaper. As you can see, I have enough fragments lying around. I attempted an Uber Shaper, and my own bad gameplay wound up leading me to failing it, but overall, it wasn't any fault of the character necessarily. It's just I haven't really done enough Uber Shaper to play that really well. Like, he does his ultimate chaos, and 9 times out of 10 I get hit when it comes to that phase. And if I don't block it, then I pretty much just die. So, otherwise it was completely doable. It was 100%. It was 100% right there. I just happened to screw it up. Happens. But anyway, this character completely viable in literally everything. Tier 17's good. Uber's done. Pinnacle's all done. I actually did run a different Flawless Breachstone with this character, also completely crushed it, no issue. I've done a 5-way with him. It was very, very smooth, and yeah, he's just been a lot of fun, really, really good. So I figured I would just run just another Flawless Breachstone, just because I feel like it shows a good capability of both how mapping goes with the character and how bossing goes as well. So we're gonna give it a go. With that, we'll just kind of jump right into this. I do also have in my inventory here Omens of Return, Adrenaline, and Death Dancing. This is just for if I happen to die while I run it. It happens, and hopefully I won't. Let's see, Shock, Night, Penetrate, not too bad. Impale's a bit scary, but should be all right. All right, let's see how it goes. Whee! Stuck on some goes. That is Vol Smite right there as well, the absolute blinding thing we have there. is that? Oh, chance to bleed. That doesn't matter. He's cursing me. Oh, also, I went the wrong way. Woo. I don't really know the Breachstone layouts too well. Truthfully. Probably should have run like a tool or something before I did this, just to remind myself how it goes. But, that should be alright. These guys. Alright. Not bad. That was mostly, definitely still mostly me just kind of flummoxing around a little bit in a couple of areas. But overall, though, as you can see, very, very clean making our way through that. Like, really not any issues with the mapping and the speed of the character. We have shield charge to get around, and then frost blink when we actually need to teleport. And so with that, let's just kind of roll into the boss here. Hey, tool. Alright, and he said, man, that's some loot right there. Look at that. Do an Uber breach in here, and all that we get is a rare helmet. We get 3 rare items. Wow. That's also kind of one of the reasons I don't really have a ton of experience with the Uber bosses in general, why I don't really bother running them or really showcasing them or anything, is just because, man, the loot, the chase that you get from it just doesn't feel like it's worth it, like 99% of the time, you know what I mean? Like, it just, like, you go through all the effort, you kill it, and he drops 3 rares for you. You know, if you do an Uber boss, you're guaranteed at least 1 unique, but I feel like anytime I run an Uber boss, it is not any of the exciting uniques, I will say. So I, for the most part, really don't bother with it unless I know that the character is just gonna absolutely crush it, or if I feel like everything else is just so easy that I want to try it out. But regardless, though, that was the Breachstone there. So let me look at what the modifiers in here again. Obviously, the 250 more monster life. I don't think it was anything crazy defensively. No, there wasn't anything crazy defensive. But yeah, as we cruise through there, we didn't pop a single one of the omens actually, so I didn't die and I didn't hit 25% life at all. Which, hey, feels good, man. Feels good, man. So with that, we'll just kind of roll right into what the itemization looks like with the character. I'll kind of talk about some different ways maybe that you could build this, but this has overall been an absolute blast to play. Like, I love playing this, and while my tornado character was probably previously my best character for this league, I think this character either comes neck and neck with that character, which is hard because it's a Templar, so he has a lot of neck, or probably even surpasses him, honestly. I think the only thing that's nicer about the tornado character is that he can really kind of stand back in boss fights with like bigger arenas. He can really kind of stand back, and he can really stand back and just cast and then just kind of focus on dodging. Whereas this guy, you gotta, obviously, we're melee, so you gotta get in there and smack away at them. But overall, though, still a lot of fun. So like I said, we're using the Anarchic Spirit Blade here. This has a Shaper and Elder influence on it. This did, I will preemptively say, this cost me a lot of currency. And realistically, if you were doing this at the start of this craft, you would grab a level 20 multi-strike and probably like a level 20 increased critical damage. As you can see here, I have level 18 and level 20 multi-strike because this was not what I Awakener orbed. I wound up Awakening Orb 2 things, and then I just kind of said, all right, screw it. And I just started throwing some random crafts on it for a long time. And I wound up spending, I think, somewhere around 12 divines making even just this, and this could get so much bigger. Like, you could have, I mean, if you get it perfectly, you could have 6 gems on this thing and not have any actual other stats outside of the gems. But for me, I managed to have the multi-strike and critical damage, and then I just kept freezing. I just kept crafting the suffixes can't be changed in the prefix slot here, and then I was just reforging in Harvest with, I believe, attack. Yeah, I was just doing attack mods until it hit just a 3rd gem that was actually relevant to what I was trying to do, and that was actually good. But realistically, another good prefix gem that you would want here, if you could get like a 4th one, if I could choose a 4th one, another really good prefix slot here that I'd probably want is probably Ruthless, actually. I think it can't roll both Added Fire and Ruthless, so I think over Added Fire, I would take Ruthless support instead, but that would just be a matter of getting lucky and actually hitting it. But if you could, then that would be where I would go with it. There is also increased elemental damage with attack skills in the prefix slot, which is also a very good option. But I feel like if you have an awakened elemental damage with attacks, you kind of want to do that instead, just because then you don't have to think about taking reflected elemental damage at all, which would be very nice. But it is, I would say that's up to you. And if you happen to roll that, I would say there's no reason not to. If you happen to hit like Added Fire or Ruthless plus the elemental damage with attack skills, and then crit damage and multi-strike, then I think you'd be even better off. But obviously, this weapon will do entirely as it is. So this just has a lot of generic stats. We have the three modifiers there, the 3 spells that, or the 3 skills. And the runecraft there, plus 2 meter to weapon range, truthfully isn't a big deal. You could 100% just craft more flat added elemental damage or physical damage. You could do the adds 5% of your... Actually, when I originally made this character, the idea was to also kind of stack mana a little bit, and then use the adds 5% of maximum mana as fire damage with this weapon. But my friend actually ended up needing to craft using power runes, so I just gave him all the runes that are necessary to craft 2 meters to weapon range, because that's the cheapest power rune craft. So I just gave him all the stuff for that, and just had him throw it on this. And honestly, the weapon range is still really good, and it's still really kind of funny too, to just be able to stand up to 3 meters away, as you can see there, and just kind of smack at him. And it kind of gives you a bit more freedom to roam near a boss while still dodging some of their attacks and then still just smacking them. So that's very, very good. And then, of course, in here, so we have Heavy Strike, we have Trinity support, and we have Close Combat support. Close Combat is just, we are indeed close. We are indeed close to them for the most part, so Close Combat is going to be giving us a really good benefit there. And then we're using a Squire so that we can effectively make this a 9-link. I know technically it's technically an 8-link because Heavy Strike itself isn't a link, but we're not being technical here, all right? So it's a 9-link with Squire here. We have Volatility here, Elemental damage with attacks, Awakened, ideally, and then Awakened, added Lightning damage. This is just for a lot of flat added, and because Volatility and Awakened Lightning damage, or Lightning damage in general with Volatility, is very, very good. Obviously, if you have this at level 5, that's just more added Lightning damage, but I just do not have one at level 5, and I'm too lazy to buy one, so we're not using that. But otherwise, Squire here, very, very good for the build. Very good overall. Helmet-wise, we're just using just a generic rare helmet. There is... The helmet slot, I will say, for this build is completely up to you and is very, very competitive slot, actually. This Eternal Burgeonet, it's not actually spectacular. I could 100% roll this to be either better or be on a slightly higher armor base. It just has filled what it needed to for the time being, and I just haven't gotten around to re-rolling it if I were to. So, Implicits for just Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds here for increased attack damage and reduced mana cost of attacks. As you see, I have 200 mana unreserved, and this costs 57 mana. It's an expensive skill to be using, so the reduced mana cost of attacks is very, very nice, and it's very good. If you did want to as well, what I will say, very quickly pivoting back to the shield, if you wanted to, you could instead do something like Inspiration, maybe remove either Awaken Added Lightning or Volatility and put Inspiration support in here instead. If you feel like the mana cost is just way too high, then just do that. But otherwise, though, Eternal Burgeonet, just life, resistances, all that kind of good stuff. And then we're using... This is where the Vol Smite comes into effect. Vol Smite just gives us more lightning damage whenever we actually activate it, which it comes up pretty often. It has up to 2 stacks. It's pretty reliably up for big burst windows against a boss, which is very nice. I'm just using Crushing Fist. Also, if you use more duration, that increases the duration of the buff that you get from Vol Smite, so highly recommend doing that. And then Frostblink just for the sake of Frostblink, just for our sake of our movement. Crushing Fist here does actually nothing. The only reason I'm using Crushing Fist is because it's funny to me, but you don't actually need to use Crushing Fist. It's also kind of helpful to me to know when I'm blocking attacks. Like, it's not, obviously, it's not always, like, if I activate Crushing Fist, then obviously I'm not going to know when I'm blocking after that. But I just like having Crushing Fist on because it's funny to me, and it's kind of good during boss fights. Or it's kind of good during just like mapping, just to have another source of AoE. But realistically, you don't need to use it. I don't even think there are any good retaliation skills that you really could use. Let's see, what do we have? Crushing Fist, Swordstorm, can't use. Eviscerate doesn't do anything really. Vengeful Cry, that doesn't really matter. Then what's the one in here? Oh yeah, you could use Glacial Shield Swipe, but again, we can't actually freeze people. We are unable to freeze, which therefore says no. Maybe you could use this, maybe Divine Retribution, but I don't necessarily know that this is worth it as well. I think it scales with spell damage, not weapon damage. So again, like I said, up to you. You could replace this easily with just like another link for Smite or something along those lines. Whatever you wanted to do there, but it's not really a big deal to me. This was kind of the one free slot that I have on the build, so I wanted to throw that there. We're using a Yoke of Suffering, and this is what I mean by we can't freeze. So enemies take 10% increased damage for each type of ailment you have inflicted on them. We are indeed using a interrogation for Secrets of Suffering, which makes it so that we can't ignite, chill, freeze, or shock, but on crits we inflict Scorch, Brittle, and Sap, so that we get those 3 ailments on crit, and then we have Skitterbots here that are applying chill and shock for us, so that's 5 that we are getting, and then actually we're getting chance to bleed from shield charge if you're able to hit a target, like a boss a few times maybe, and you can tell that they're bleeding, then that's another ailment as well, so we're getting up to 6 ailments on top of the target. But yeah, Yoke of Suffering overall, very, very strong item, very good for this build, so highly recommend using it. Also, the 19% attributes there, it's because the difference between 19 and 20% is absolutely nothing. You will not get another attribute at 20% versus 19%, so I just left it there. Rings here just have some generic resistances on them and life. This one just is a synthesized curse enemies with elemental weakness on hit. You don't necessarily need this synthesis. I just decided to buy it for the heck of it, but you could just as easily take a hunter item here, and you just go over to harvest and you spam caster. You spam caster on the hunter ring until it gives you the curse enemies with LE weakness mod and something else decent, and that's all that you would do. But the intelligence I need on this item, I'll probably reroll this at some point just because it is not exactly tremendous outside of the resistance and the intelligence. That's literally all it needs. But yeah, that'll work. And then with this, we're doing Shroud of the Lightless. That is the other kind of big source of damage that we're doing. But I decided that I didn't want to lean too hard into the stacking eye jewels thing. Like, I absolutely could have. If you really want to, and if I really wanted to, you could replace the helmet here with a Wraith Lord, which is the tier 17 unique. It just has 4 abyssal slots, and the rest of the item actually doesn't do anything effectively for the build. It's all minion based stuff, minion inspector based. But you could use it just for the 4 eye jewels there, and then you could just put more murderous eye jewels in there that fill these similar stats, that fill your life, that fill your resist still, that give you more damage. And you definitely could go that route, but it's very, very limiting on the amount of sockets that you have. And that's kind of why I didn't want to do it, is it's a little bit too limiting on the amount of sockets that you're able to use, and it kind of gets annoying because of that. But we are using Shadow Lightless, and then I just am using a couple of items, and on the tree, anywhere I can, I have Abyssal Jewel socket slotted in there. But in here, we're using Precision, Enlightened, Skitterbots, and Determination. You know what? I don't have Determination corrupted. We're going to corrupt it right now. Bada bing, bada boom! Whoops, I missed. Bada bing, bada boom! Alright, well, that sucks. Anyway, now we have Determination successfully corrupted, -1 level. But anyway, just using generically good things. We actually, the 2 reasons why I don't have a lot of mana reserved is A, we don't really have the slots for it. Like, I could put maybe something here. I don't really know what I would put. I could replace Crushing Fist, though, with some other low mana reservation aura, maybe like Blood and Sand or something. But between the high mana cost of the skill and also using a tincture, the mana that we have actually does kind of fluctuate a lot. So I haven't really felt bad about just using 3 auras and keeping this amount of mana up. Doesn't really bother me. But again, whatever you want to do. But Shadow of the Lightless, though, it's again really good. More penetration on elemental resist per Abyss Tool, max life, max mana per Abyss Tool as well. And then we have over here Bubonic Trail, and this is where we're getting our chance to bleed. So we're using Shield Charge with chance to bleed. Because our weapon converts all of our damage to elemental, we cannot cause bleeding in any way except through the shield, basically. Anything that deals weapon damage, we cannot cause bleeding that way because it will all be converted to elemental damage, and you can't cause a target to bleed from elemental damage, and there's no source of spell bleeding that I can think of, so we just go with shield charge, and we have chance to bleed attached to that, which at least sort of consistently gets us at least another ailment on the enemy, but it's not the end of the world if you aren't able to proc bleeding on a target. Like, I don't think you need to just be standing there, fighting Maven and doing this until you see her bleed, like, if you happen to hit it, if you're dashing around against Maven and you hit her and you see her bleed, awesome. If you don't, then don't worry about it. It's just kind of another added benefit for Yoke of Suffering should that happen. And then we have, since we're rocking Bubonic Trail, the increased move speed while affected by a magic eye jewel. So we have just a magic eye jewel here for crit multi and more life on it. Gives us our move speed, and then mana reservation efficiency while affected by a unique. Well, we do really want to use Tekrod's Gaze for more critical strike chance. So Tekrod's Gaze is here. And yeah, that'll give us some reservation efficiency and some some good damage, and some move speed. Darkness Enthroned. And I happen to buy a 98% very early on in the league, and I've used it a couple of times, so here it is again. We just have resistances, some intelligence. I really needed intelligence for this build. 122 for Shroud here, and you need 126 total for Awaken added lightning damage once it hits level 5. So we just have some intelligence generically. This eye jewel also could be replaced. Be just intelligence, a higher life pool, and then more added damage to attacks, ideally. But yeah, and then just very generic, just added damage, some intelligence, other good stuff. Whatever you need to fill your resistances, your pool of stats, all that kind of good stuff. And then over here we have an Admiral's Arrogance. I double corrupted these and used them on a different build earlier in the league as well. So these are have a very good implicit set with 4% increased max life, and attacks have plus 0.73% to critical strike chance. But the biggest thing here, the biggest deal overall, is the +3 to melee skill gems that gives a heavy strike and even bigger effectiveness of added damage pool. Very, very good for heavy strike to be using that, and also just the increased attack speed and just the chance to just shoot up to max rage is also very nice, very, very comfortable for the build. And we're just using, of course, Molten Shell with more duration, and I have an Enhance in here with automation going on. This is just so that we get more duration out of our Molten Shell and our automation here. So, well, automation here will just have more cooldown recovery. So we're getting our Molten Shell up more often, and when the Molten Shell does activate, it's lasting longer, which is always nice. Flask-wise here, pretty standard stuff: Bubbling Flask, Sealing. We don't have to worry about bleeding too much, because as long as we're leeching, we aren't affected by bleed, but it's still just kind of nice to have just to clear that ailment, don't have to think about it. Prismatic Tincture of Skill. You would actually, there is a higher tier to this that you would actually want to hit, ideally. As you can see, there's only tier 2 and tier 3. So if you're able to get the bigger increased effect and even more increased melee weapon attack speed from it, then that's just even better. But these tinctures, especially Prismatic Tincture with elemental damage, is insane for this build. It is a huge damage increase. So also remember, these can be affected by quality same way that regular flasks can be. Regular flasks, we have Quicksilver, we got a Granite, and we have Bottled Faith. If you don't have a Bottled Faith, if you wanted to use something else, if you said that's too damn expensive, there are, of course, always other options. There is good old Wise Oak that will work. There is Taste of Hate, because since we're converting physical, Sources of Fizz as extra is still really good. So those two unique flasks are very good in of themselves. Could use just a classic diamond flask. Could use a quartz flask if you just want to phase through things. As you saw when we were running the Flawless Breach, I did get stuck a few times. I had to wait for Farsplink. So up to you on what you want to do. If you don't have a Bottle of Faith, don't want to use one, there you go with that. And I think there we're good to just kind of roll. We'll just roll into the tree. So here we are. It's the tree. Also, just so you guys know, Block's really good. If you didn't know this league, Block's insanely good. But yeah, so we're running Slayer, of course. We're taking the accuracy, strike range, more damage to melee enemies based on proximity. We are, of course, very close. And then Overwhelm, just for the crit multi, and making enemies not crit us as hard, which is always nice. And then we have Brutal Fervor and Endless Hunger here for the attack speed while leeching and leeching, all that kind of good stuff. And the Overleech, everything. It is reduced damage ticket. Like, this is just a very good wheel. If you wanted to go pure damage version of this, you would actually just go over to Bane of Legends, take Headsman for the Giga Cull and Bane of Legends just for more damage against your bossing targets and everything. But this is just a really cozy wheel overall, and I personally just love going this route way more than I love going this route. So here we are. Then tree-wise. So of course, like I said, block incredibly good. Also, we want some kind of source of reduced mana cost of skills, because boy oh boy is heavy strike expensive. So we're taking, of course, all the attack speed. We're taking Art of the Gladiator, all just this very generic, like kind of tree entry point here, and Golem's Blood. Defiance, I will say, at the start of the tree, take Defiance much later. Like, you don't really need Defiance until probably a good bit later into the character. This was actually the most recent points that I used. 94, 95 went into Defiance, not before or anything. So anyway, go down here, take Golem's Blood, all that good stuff. You can take Retaliation once you start using a shield. Stick with swords as much as you can throughout the campaign, I guess, while you're leveling. These are just some increased global accuracy ratings. As you can see, we're still a little bit behind on accuracy, but it's not a big deal. And in fact, once or if I hit level 96, the next node will be going into the auras from your skills have increased effect on you. So that will actually, I'm pretty sure, effectively cap accuracy because of precision. So that would just be a good thing to have there. Overall, though, pretty standard stuff we're taking. Blade of Cunning over here. We have a cluster jewel here, which has martial prowess, drive the destruction. This could also be, I think it's Feed the Fury. Feed the Fury would technically be better, I think, but I was rolling this myself and hit drive the destruction and went good enough. And Fuel the Fight, of course, just for mana leech, because that is just a very easy source of mana leech. And then, like I said, we're taking interrogation here. We're getting Secrets of Suffering. And we have another slot over here for our murderous Idol friend with some accuracy and some more damage. So just very good nodes there. Champion of the Cause. Dismembering. We're taking this slot here once again, just kind of for more effect. More Idols that we have on us, the better. We're taking block, of course. Iron Reflexes is... Most of the items in here are... I guess not most, but some of these items are evasion splits or just have evasion on them as is. So I wanted to just convert them to armor just to not even have to think about it. It's not like we're capped on armor or anything either. So you could reasonably just keep this node off and just have a chance to evade and still have a chance to have it to be hit with armor. Not a huge deal, but I just like having Iron Reflexes on instead for this build. And Versatile Combatant, of course, because now that will let us get also 65% chance to block spell damage. So we are 68% chance to block attack and 65 for spell damage. Block, very good. Get block. If you're using a sword and shield build, get block. So yeah, we have deflection over here. Like I said, Tetsudo there. Blade Dancer here. We are going all the way up here to Primeval Force for the chance to treat monster LE resistances as inverted, because yeah, it's just a good node. If you were to start, say, like Warden or something, or if you really wanted to maybe eliminate some of these points and make your way over here instead, you definitely could. You could take Fatal Blade. instead of anointing Fatal Blade, you could make your way over here, take Fatal Blade, take Herbalism, and then maybe cut some of these points over here if you wanted to. But I would kind of leave that up to each individual person. For me, I think I like this setup best so far. And we're taking more block over here. Fortification, melee hits, fortify, all that good stuff. The block mastery for more more chance to block spell damage. This is just basically we're just using this for the endurance charge when you're hit, or if you're just standing there and you're just gonna wail away on a boss for a while and you're just gonna rely on block to do everything for you, then inexorable is also not a bad option. We have aggressive bastion up here, taking some blade master, which gives us more accuracy, all that kind of good jazz. And of course the mana mastery and cannibalistic right here, along with juggernaut. Of course, very, very important. Make sure you take Tribal Fury. Tribal Fury, very good. And especially with Heavy Strike. Heavy Strike is a very, very generic strike skill. You don't have any additional effects. You are just swinging your weapon. So Tribal Fury, incredibly good. And same with the non-fall strike skills, target one nearby. But yeah, that's more or less the entirety of the build. Also Rage with the Rage Mastery, of course, up here. But yeah, that is basically just the entirety of the tree for the build. It's fairly simplistic, honestly. But this character has been just an absolute ton of fun. I guess what I would say if I'm going to continue this character, if I keep playing him further and try to really just kind of push levels. I mean, I'm at least 40% of the way to 96. Like I said, 96 would go into the Reservation of Mastery here. It would, and I would take the auras from your skills have 10% increased effect on you. If I were to go 97, then I would take the Crit Mastery, either for the increased effective damage of non-damaging ailments. That's probably what I would take, actually. It would probably be that, just for the sake of making our brittle, our scorch, all that kind of stuff a bit more consistently hard hitting. If you're to go further than that, even, oh man, I don't know. I'd probably still just keep taking mastery stuff. Maybe the reduced extra damage from critical strikes. Maybe take another sword mastery here for the increased meters to melee strike range there. Maybe if you'd want to just take cloth and chain to really help with your resistances here. Let's see, what else could you really take? I mean, you could take shield mastery, increase attack damage for 75 armor or evasion on your shield. You can take generic plus 30 to max life there. There's all sorts of nodes that you could take and that you could improve on for this character if you really wanted to. Also, like I said, if you went up to Fatal Blade, then and cut out some of these nodes, you would instead anoint Disemboweling. But I think that would only be the case if you really went the Warden route and tried to go Warden instead of Slayer. But I'm not sure how good that would be. Probably still good. And also, like I said, this is just kind of another side note on top of all these like next step things. Is like I said, the helmet is very replaceable. You can either get yourself a better rare helmet that's just pure armor, get yourself one that has a higher armor base. You could use a Blizzard Crown. Blizzard Crown would also be a very good option. It's just more damage. If you wanted to also continue to lean into the damage and go a bit of a tankier route, you could do Crown of the Inward Eye. Crown of the Inward Eye would also be a good option here. Another good option would be, I think it's Crown of the Tyrant, which comes from Delve and gives you a lot of flat added damage based on the color of the socket in it, but it only has one socket, so, you know, that one's a little bit more of a hesitant pick, but you could absolutely make that work. Also, another obvious one is probably Replica Abyssus over regular Abyssus. Replica Abyssus gives you even more flat added elemental damage, a really big increase to your melee crit multi, but you take more increased elemental damage, so take it at your own peril. I've used it a couple of times this league, and it actually didn't feel bad. I imagine with a mixture of block and endurance charges that it really wouldn't be all that bad. But, you know, as I say, do it at your own discretion. But yeah, that is this character definitely all kind of fleshed out in a nutshell. Been a ton of fun. I'm really glad that they finally gave us at least sort of a reason to use Heavy Strike. It's been just a really fun build, fun skill, and truthfully, this has probably been the most fun I've had in the league outside of probably the Tornado character. Like those have definitely been the two top ones for me, and I'll probably just keep playing them off on the side for the fun of it. But yeah, with that, I think that's where I'll end. YouTube, I hope you're having a great time in the Settlers League. I don't really know what's gonna happen in the next. I think they said that they have a presentation show us at the end of October, maybe early November. to talk about Path of Exile 2, to talk about how much we're going to get in the early access, so I will certainly be watching that. Like I said, I'll be playing Path of Exile 2 when that comes out, regardless of how much content is in the early access. I will certainly be playing it. I will certainly try to make videos on it, maybe just kind of explain some things, depending on how much of the game is there, maybe just some general build ideas or just some general helpful tips for it. But we'll see. And I think otherwise, the only other thing I have on my calendar that isn't a personal thing would be Diablo 4. I will be playing that for probably just like a few weeks. I don't think I'll make any videos or anything on it. I don't think I'll do anything crazy with with Diablo 4. I don't think I'll do anything because I imagine it's going to be I'm going to play it for a week or two and I'm not going to feel crazy about it because it just seems like they're leaning way too hard into it being Diablo 3 again. That I'll end up stopping playing, and that'll probably be where I end up leaving Diablo 4. And then I might come back to Path of Exile and make another build after that. But we'll see. Either way, that's all in the future. That's all coming up next. I'll continue to push out videos and whatever else as I come across new and exciting and fun things. With that, YouTube, hope you have a good one. See you next time. Bye now.